Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled, Ann. Today we're going to break down a concept that is moving incredibly fast from, theory to actual industrial reality.
It really
We're
is.
talking about the convergence of what we're calling the green code and the hot core. And this isn't just some small technical update.
No, not at all.
This is a structural metamorphosis of the entire energy sector. And it's being driven by a simple, ruthless new market demand.
The thirst of AI.
The unquenchable 247 thirst of digital intelligence. We're seeing a fundamental shift in how we even talk about energy, moving from a focus on just clean energy to, well, a critical and urgent focus on dense and reliable clean energy.
That's really the heart of it. This isn't just an aspirational roadmap anymore. It's not a hopeful projection.
Right.
It's a necessary pivot. And it's being driven by the cold, hard factors of physics and, economics. The world is finally reacting to the fact that our current grids just can't support the projected growth of computation.
Not if they rely on intermittent power.
Exactly. Not with diffuse, intermittent sources. So our mission here for this analysis on Tomorrow Unveiled is to synthesize the biggest breakthroughs from the past week, focusing only on the universally corroborated information that our dedicated research team has compiled.
Right. We want to show you exactly how high-density power is stepping up to solve this massive density problem facing society.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's unpack this density issue because it really all starts and ends with the artificial intelligence boom.
It does.
The explosion of AI in data centers is accelerating global electricity demand at a rate that is, frankly, astonishing. We're not talking about small increases that you can handle with a few grid optimization.
No, this is a different beast entirely.
We're talking about a whole new layer of foundational industrial demand that acts less like regular consumption and more like a permanent, non-negotiable baseload.
And the numbers are, well, they're quite frankly difficult to grasp.
Staggering.
Yeah, staggering. The research team that compiled this information, they're projecting AI data centers alone will consume up to 945 terawatt hours.
Annually by 2030. And just to put that in context for you,
Right.
that single demand queue, just from AI, exceeds the current combined electricity consumption of major developed nations. It's like an electrical black hole.
And the key distinction, the thing that changes the entire game, is that this demand requires firm 247 power.
Yes, an AI model doesn't pause its training run when the sun sets or when the air goes still.
Of course not.
The economic imperative is uninterrupted power. And that non-negotiable demand is what has completely reshaped the industry's whole philosophy.
For the last decade, it was all about electrify everything, right? Get everything off fossil fuels and onto the grid.
That was the mantra.
But now the industry has realized that simply electrifying everything is, well, it's not enough if the electricity itself is intermittent or unreliable.
The value of an electron drops precipitously if it cannot be guaranteed at 3 in the morning.
And that leads directly to the new mantra.
From electrify everything to densify everything. It's a purely rational response to the physical constraints we're facing. So what does densify actually mean in practice?
It means prioritizing power sources that deliver a massive amount of energy from a minimal physical footprint. And crucially, they have to do it reliably, achieving capacity factors that consistently exceed 90%.
So when you have this massive, concentrated demand for compute, you need a matching supply that is just as concentrated. The market is now recognizing this widening arbitrage between the value of an intermittent green electron and the much, much higher value of a firm dispatchable green electron.
Density equals reliability.
And reliability is the new premium commodity. Exactly.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. We call this the AI energy paradox. On one hand, you have AI as this voracious, insatiable consumer that's driving all this demand, pushing the grid to its absolute limits.
And in some places, it's even forcing a return to older, dirtier fossil fuels just to keep the lights on and the data flowing. Right. But on the other hand, AI is also simultaneously the solution. It's the very thing enabling the advanced clean energy breakthroughs we're about to discuss. It's accelerating scientific discovery.
And that paradox is the very essence of the Green Code in action. The consensus view from the reports our team analyzed points to a critical policy shift, something called the Genesis Mission Executive Order.
What's the core idea behind that?
The policy explicitly positions AI, the Green Code, as the primary architect for scientific discovery in advanced nuclear and fusion. So think of it less like a simple optimizer and more like a hyperspeed research lab.
It's not just managing the grid, it's designing the power plants.
Precisely. By integrating petabytes of data from national labs, including incredibly complex and even historically classified materials science data into one unified AI platform, the mission aims to literally double research productivity within a single decade.
That is a profound thought. We've always been waiting for human scientists to solve these fundamental physics bottlenecks in material science that have slowed down nuclear infusion.
And now we're tasking silicon intelligence with finding those breakthroughs. AI isn't just optimizing where the power goes, it is fundamentally redesigning the molecular structures and the plasma containment systems of the power plants of the future.
The green code is solving the intractable complexity of the hot core.
That's the idea, and you can see this connection immediately when you look at the biggest physical constraint we face: land use.
Absolutely. The reliance on diffuse sources, traditional wind and solar, it runs headfirst into a physical and political wall.
And that is the core rationale for this pivot to the hot core. If you just look at the physics, nuclear power, the quintessential high-density source, has an exceptional capacity factor. We're talking over 90% consistently.
And you just don't get that with wind or solar.
Not even close. Their capacity factors are typically below 45%. And then there's the footprint. Our sources all corroborated this. A single 1 GW nuclear plant sits on about 50 acres.
Okay, 50 acres.
Now, to get the same power from utility-scale solar, you need about 7,500 acres.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It's an acute difference. And it shows why we need these high-density, small-footprint solutions if we want energy security, if we want to meet decarbonization goals, and, crucially, if we want to avoid sacrificing vast swaths of landscape to energy production.
And the moment you start talking about 7,500 acres for one project, you move from a technological problem to a political one.
You get the NMBY factor, not in my backyard.
Exactly.
That's a key point.
Yeah.
The sprawl that's inherent in low-density sources, it generates immense local political friction. You've got transmission lines, visual impact, biodiversity loss, land acquisition fights.
The list goes on.
So the move to the hot core is also a political strategy. By minimizing the physical footprint, you minimize the political opposition, and you accelerate deployment. The sheer scale of AI demand means we just can't afford to wait years for environmental impact statements on a 70,000-acre wind farm.
Not when a 50-acre nuclear facility can deliver the same power, 247.
That's the logic.
And the market, governments, they clearly agree that high density is the only way forward. The biggest signal of this confidence came this week with a massive federal commitment to fission power.
A very tangible signal.
Our research team noted that the U.S. Department of Energy, the DOE, committed a substantial $800 million to accelerate the first commercial small modular reactors, or SMRs. This isn't just a grant. This is the government fundamentally de-risking the entry of a whole new energy technology.
And this commitment is universally described in the analyses as the largest federal investment in commercial nuclear construction in decades. It's a powerful statement of industrial intent.
And it's not just a blank check, right? The structure of the funding is important.
Very important. It's split evenly between two flagship projects, and that split specifically illustrates this transition away from theoretical one-off builds to genuine, replicable, fleet-scale deployment.
The goal is to standardize the design,
so that building a nuclear plant becomes more like building an airplane, a repeatable manufacturing process.
Okay, so let's delve into those two flagship projects, because they really showcase different but critical aspects of this new manufacturing mindset. This is the immediate future of the hot core.
The first one involved the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, and GE Vernova Hitachi. They're focusing on deploying the BWRX 300 reactor.
And that's a 300-megawatt SMR.
A 300-megawatt electric, yes. It's a Generation 3rd plus light water SMR, and it's slated for the Clinch River site in Tennessee. The goal is commercial operation in the early 2030s, which is aggressive.
Very aggressive.
The significance here isn't just the tech. It's an established light water design, so the regulatory path is a bit clearer. But it's the fact that this is currently the first commercial SMR technology under active preparation for construction in the entire Western world.
So it sets the global benchmark.
It sets the benchmark, and just as importantly, it establishes a domestic supply chain base.
Okay, so the BWRX 300 is about being first to market, setting that precedent. What about the second project? That one seems focused purely on cost, on repeatability.
That's Holtec International. They got the other half of the funding to deploy 2 of their SMR 300 units at the old Palisades nuclear site in Michigan.
So that's 600 megawatts total.
600 megawatt, yes. And Holtec's strategic partnership with Hyundai E&C is absolutely key here.
Why is that?
It brings in South Korea's globally proven ability to execute massive construction projects on time and on budget. That's a capability that has, frankly, been lacking in Western nuclear builds for a long time.
Right.
Their stated objective is a repeatable fleet-scale model, and that means designing the entire project from procurement to pouring concrete to avoid the traditional bespoke construction delays and, the devastating cost overruns that haunted previous generations of nuclear plants.
So it's the pivot from a specialized construction site to an assembly line.
That's the perfect way to put it. And that distinction, assembly line versus specialized construction site, that is what will ultimately determine the economic viability of the hot core.
It has to be fast and cheap enough to compete with natural gas, and that requires standardization.
Absolutely. Standardization reduces risk, which lowers the cost of capital, and that makes SMRs an attractive infrastructure investment for major financial players.
Yeah.
If you can guarantee an on-time, on-budget project delivery based on a factory model,
the whole ROI calculation changes.
Completely different.
And speaking of shifting gears and accelerating schedules, the regulatory momentum is also moving faster than anyone really anticipated. I'm thinking of TerraPower's Natrium reactor.
Yes.
Our research team highlighted that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, completed the final safety evaluation for that reactor in Wyoming ahead of schedule.
That phrase, ahead of schedule, is almost unheard of in the nuclear regulatory world.
It really is.
It signals a profound policy shift. A willingness by the regulators to fast-track innovative designs, especially those built by companies with high-profile backers like Bill Gates and strong utility partners like PacifiCorp.
And the Natrium reactor is particularly exciting because it's a more advanced design, right?
It is. It's a 345-megawatt sodium-cooled fast reactor, but its real defining feature, the game changer, is the integrated molten salt energy storage system.
Okay, tell us more about that storage system. Why is that so vital for a reactor?
Well, traditionally, nuclear plants have operated as pure baseload. They run at 100% output, 247, because throttling them up and down, what's called load following, is thermally inefficient and puts a lot of stress on the components.
Which makes them less useful for a grid that's full of intermittent renewables.
Exactly. This integrated storage system changes that entire equation. The reactor core operates at a constant, efficient thermal output, generating heat, which is then stored in molten salt.
So it's essentially a nuclear plant with a giant integrated thermal battery.
That's a perfect analogy. The turbine generator then draws power variably from that stored heat, so it allows the plant to dispatch electricity on demand. It can operate at 345 megawatts most of the time.
But then it can surge when needed.
Exactly. During peak demand, it can boost its electrical output to 500 megawatts for several hours using that stored thermal energy. This demonstrates nuclear's potential for true load-following capability. It can act as a flexible power resource that supports the grid during those peak evening hours.
Which is something renewables really struggle with, even with large battery backups.
And it makes the plant incredibly valuable to grid operators. So nuclear isn't just reliable baseload anymore, it's becoming dispatchable peak shaving power. It's adapting intelligently to grid needs.
A direct application of the hot core meeting the demands of a green code-enabled grid.
That's it.
And beyond these light water SMRs, we're seeing huge breakthroughs in advanced fuel cycles, which suggests a dramatically more sustainable future for fission.
That sustainability focus is central. It's key to the viability of the next generation of nuclear. For instance, the reports confirmed that China achieved the world's first successful conversion of thorium to uranium fuel in a molten salt reactor.
Thorium. That's a big deal.
It's a very big deal. Thorium is naturally more abundant than uranium, it's safer to handle, and it promises to dramatically reduce the volume and, crucially, the radiotoxicity of long-lived radioactive waste.
So this shift validates the idea of using thorium as a primary nuclear fuel source.
Potentially powering nations for thousands of years with a much smaller environmental legacy. And the U.S. is also advancing this molten salt chemistry, right?
Yes. Our research team pointed to the Idaho National Laboratory, INL.
Right. They produced the first enriched fuel salt for the molten chloride reactor experiment, or MCRE. Now, this is highly technical, but the takeaway is that this shift to advanced fuel cycles is a crucial environmental and economic breakthrough. These cycles enable extremely high burn-up rates. That just means more energy is extracted from the fuel before it's disposed of, and that reduces the necessary waste volume by up to 90% compared to conventional, decades-old reactors.
So it dramatically shrinks the footprint of the waste disposal problem.
It does. And the final decisive signal that the hot core is becoming industrial reality is the massive influx of private capital.
You're talking about X-Energy.
Exactly. Another advanced reactor developer, they specialize in high-temperature gas reactors. They just closed a massive $700 million Series D funding round.
But the investors here are maybe the most telling indicator of where the market is headed.
Absolutely. The round was led by quantitative trading firms like Jane Street, alongside big tech players like Amazon,
High-frequency finance, and hyperscale tech.
This confluence of capital is the ultimate verification of the green code hot core thesis. Jane Street isn't investing because nuclear is sentimental or, just green.
No.
They're investing because they see a clear, profitable arbitrage opportunity in owning assets that guarantee firm 247 power for the AI and digital infrastructure that they themselves rely on.
They're quantifying the risk of intermittency, and they're choosing to invest in reliability.
And Amazon's participation just reinforces that critical trend. Hyperscalers are essentially becoming their own utilities. They can't rely on the existing grid structure to deliver the power density they need for their new AI clusters.
They have to guarantee uptime.
And the only way to guarantee a reliable, massive block of power is to either own the generation or control it through long-term power purchase agreements. This $700 million investment validates SMRs not as an experiment, but as a scalable, standardized infrastructure asset ready for mass deployment.
Which is exactly what the digital economy requires.
Precisely.
Now let's move from fission, the splitting of the atom, to fusion, the power of the sun. For decades, the joke was that fusion was always 20 years away.
Always.
But the developments of the past week, and this was strongly corroborated across all the reports, confirm that fusion is moving from if to where. The focus is now squarely on the practical stuff: manufacturing, supply chain, site selection.
That is the defining generational shift. The conversation is no longer purely scientific. It is now industrial. It's driven by engineering milestones, not just plasma physics. The key players are aggressively pushing toward that technical holy grail of a net energy gain.
Q greater than 1.
With sights set on commercial viability, which is often designated as Q equals 10.
So what are the major projects leading this accelerating global race to Q10? Because it really does feel like an energy arms race right now.
It is. On the global stage, China is making very aggressive state-backed moves with its best reactor, the burning experimental superconducting tokamak.
Okay.
Installation has begun in Hefei, and their ambitious goal is to achieve net fusion energy production, Q greater than 1, by 2027. Their accelerated timeline, backed by centralized government funding and, streamlined manufacturing, is putting immense competitive pressure on Western fusion efforts.
And in the West, Commonwealth Fusion Systems, CFS, is being just as aggressive.
Right. Indeed. The research team confirmed that CFS's Spark tokamak is now 65% complete at their campus in Massachusetts, also aiming for net positive energy by 2027.
But the real headline here isn't the science, it's the market validation.
It's absolutely the market. They've already secured over $1 billion in power purchase agreements, PPAs, for their future commercial plant, the 400 milliW ARC reactor.
And these are deals with major players.
Major players like Google and the Italian energy company Eni. Securing PPAs years before a plant is even operational it's extraordinary.
It's unheard of. It means these massive corporations are betting huge amounts of capital on the successful deployment of a technology that hasn't even proven scientific viability yet. It shows complete faith in their engineering roadmap.
It shows an incredible level of market confidence, and it's all driven by that need for firm power. They are paying a premium now for the guarantee of 247 clean power later.
And even the big international project, I'd hear, is picking up the pace.
Yes. We saw confirmation that the massive ITER project in France, which has often been criticized for delays due to its sheer scale and bureaucracy.
It's a huge collaboration.
It is. But they are reportedly accelerating assembly. Critical path components, specifically those huge superconducting magnets, are being installed ahead of the updated schedule. All three of these major global initiatives are moving with a renewed sense of urgency.
Because the energy demand clock is ticking.
Louder and louder. And that urgency naturally extends to practical industrial planning. Utilities aren't just waiting for fusion to be proven in a lab anymore.
They're planning for its integration into the grid right now.
And that brings us to strategic site planning, which is essential for rapid deployment once the tech is ready. And utilities are actively leveraging existing infrastructure.
So where are they planning to put these massive new power sources? It seems really inefficient to build entirely new sites when we have so many retired fossil fuel plants just sitting there.
And that's the repowering thesis proven out. The Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, is exploring deploying a Type 1 energy stellarator that's a 350 MOE baseload plant at the former Bull Run fossil fuel plant site in Tennessee.
That's a brilliant strategic move.
It is, because it leverages existing switch yards, high-voltage transmission lines, water permits, and maybe most importantly, a trained, skilled workforce that's already used to running a power plant.
So it drastically cuts down on cost and permitting time compared to building on a completely new greenfield site.
Exactly. And the European strategy is just as forward-thinking. Gas Fusion in Europe published a comprehensive study identifying 150 existing industrial clusters across the continent that are capable of hosting commercial fusion plants.
So they're also focused on integration.
Heavily.
Yeah.
Your strategy emphasizes integration into existing grid and cooling infrastructure. They recognize that fusion can't just remain a standalone science project in some bespoke facility. It has to be manufactured and seamlessly woven directly into the existing industrial base.
They're treating fusion not as a scientific discovery, but as a standardized manufacturable product.
Ready for pan-European collaboration. And for that manufacturing to happen at scale, you absolutely need the supply chain built out simultaneously.
So what infrastructure is being built right now to support this emerging fusion industry?
The focus is on the most critical high-tech components. We saw key developments in neutral beam technology.
Which is for heating the plasma, right?
Yes, it's essential for heating the fusion plasma up to the hundreds of millions of degrees needed. TAE Technologies and the UK Atomic Energy Authority formed a joint venture, TAE Beam UK, specifically to commercialize these neutral beam particle accelerators.
So this is about establishing a global hub for the fusion supply chain.
And ensuring that the manufacturing capacity for these highly specialized components doesn't become a bottleneck for deployment down the road.
And policy is actively aligning to support this rapid industrialization, moving fusion from, basic science funding to industrial manufacturing subsidies. Our research team noted the introduction of the bipartisan Fusion Advanced Manufacturing Parity Act.
That act is immensely significant. It extends critical tax credits, the ones originally created for mature technologies like wind and solar, to specialized fusion components.
Things like the magnets and vessels.
High-temperature, superconducting magnets, vacuum vessels, yes. This legislation levels the playing field. It acknowledges that fusion is now entering a manufacturing phase, and it incentivizes domestic production of this high-tech hardware.
And the political imperative is pretty clear.
Avoid relying on foreign adversaries for the critical materials needed to build the hot core infrastructure of the future.
Okay, so the hot core isn't just about the atom. It also includes the heat beneath our feet.
The inexhaustible high-density heat of the Earth. Geothermal energy, which has historically been constrained to volcanic regions like Iceland or California, is now experiencing a massive awakening.
Right. Enhanced geothermal systems, or EGS.
They're proving viable almost anywhere by brilliantly adapting the precision drilling and reservoir stimulation technologies that were perfected in the oil and gas sector.
This is a monumental shift. It decouples geothermal from geography. And if geothermal becomes ubiquitous, it solves the land use problem while providing 247 baseload power, just like nuclear.
It's a game changer.
The prime example, and this was corroborated across multiple reports, is Fervo Energy's Cape Station project in Utah. What did the research team find about its performance?
Fervo is the definitive bellwether for the industrialization of deep geothermal. The project achieved thermal recovery factors between 50 and 60%. Now, this metric is absolutely critical for the economics of EGS.
Why is that?
Historically, you had to pump water into the earth and the energy required to pump that fluid. The parasitic load often ate up most of the generated power, which would just kill the project's economic viability.
So by achieving this 50 to 60% recovery factor, Fervo is essentially proving they can get way more thermal energy out than they put in to run the process.
Precisely. They've solved the efficiency problem. They've demonstrated they can effectively triple the useful thermal energy reserves that are accessible in hot, dry rock. This is the shalification of geothermal.
Using precision horizontal drilling and multi-stage stimulation straight from the oil and gas playbook.
To create a massive underground radiator that provides baseload 247 power, regardless of local geology or the weather.
And the scale is just breathtaking. This isn't just some pilot project.
No. The reports indicate that the Cape Station area alone can support over 5 gigawatts of development, accessed at depths up to 13,000 feet.
5 gigawatts. That's equivalent to 5 large nuclear power plants.
Secured within a relatively small area, providing reliable power with zero fuel cost. Just steam extraction. It turns deep, hot sedimentary rock into a highly valuable dispatchable energy asset.
But geothermal is also proving to be valuable as a strategic energy storage asset. It's like a genuine subsurface battery.
A two-in-one resource, and that's where the innovative work of Sage Geosystems comes in. They're pioneering what are called geopressured geothermal systems, or GGS.
And how is that different?
Instead of just focusing on heat extraction for continuous power, GGS is designed with flexibility in mind. They focus on storing massive amounts of mechanical and thermal energy by pumping water into the earth to build up pressure during times of low demand.
Ah, so when wind and solar are producing a lot.
Exactly. And then they dispatch power on demand by releasing that pressure. It sounds a lot like pumped hydro storage, but it's completely underground and independent of geography.
Our research team cited corroborating reports that the U.S. Department of Defense, the DoD, has partnered with Sage.
Yes, and the reason for the DoD's interest provides a fantastic illustration of the strategic value of the hot core. It's all about energy security and resilience.
So what's the appeal for military installations?
Unlike above-ground assets like fuel tanks or sprawling solar arrays or even visible transmission lines, a geothermal well is inherently resilient. It's resilient to kinetic attacks, electromagnetic pulses, severe weather.
You name it.
It provides uninterrupted power from a hidden source, which is absolutely critical for military installations that require guaranteed uptime. The ability of GGS to function as a subsurface battery creates a whole new asset class that combines a baseload power plant and an unbreakable grid-scale battery.
And this geothermal revolution isn't just a North American story using the fracking playbook, is it?
No, our sources show international progress using a completely different physical model. In Germany, Everloop technology is advancing a unique conduction-only model.
Conduction-only.
Unlike Fervo's EGS, which relies on hydraulic fracturing to create reservoirs, Ever drills a completely sealed, radiator-like loop of pipe deep underground. Fluid circulates naturally inside this sealed loop, absorbing heat purely through conduction from the surrounding hot rock, and then returns to the surface to generate power.
And why is that model so important?
It completely avoids relying on thermal aquifers or worrying about fracturing rock. That opens up vast areas of Central Europe, which lacks volcanic activity but has deep sedimentary heat, to reliable geothermal power.
So it makes geothermal a truly universal hot core technology.
That's the goal.
Here's where it gets really interesting, connecting this massive accelerating infrastructure, boom fission, fusion, geothermal back to the digital code, the green code, that enables and demands it. But before we connect those dots between the physical infrastructure and the digital intelligence driving it, let's just take a quick moment. If you're finding this insightful, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Tomorrow Unveiled, and consider hitting that new hype button to help us reach more viewers. And of course, be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the future.
Okay, so now we loop back to the industrial alignment that is actively driving this whole densification shift. We've already highlighted the major government signals, the DOE's $800 million for SMRs, the $700 million in private funding for X energy, the Fusion Parity Act, all of which underscore this complete alignment of government policy and massive private finance behind high-density energy.
But the green code is influencing more than just funding. It's changing the physical design of the infrastructure itself.
Yes, it is.
Let's delve deeper into that, particularly in the data centers. The sheer scale of the massive water usage required for traditional data center cooling has become a huge sustainability and political concern. Our research team noted that across all their analyses.
The reports highlight that these new AI factories consume colossal amounts of both energy and water. The amount of water used for cooling is staggering. Traditional data centers rely on evaporative cooling towers, which literally evaporate millions of gallons of water every day to dissipate heat.
And in water-stressed regions, that creates immediate conflict with local agriculture and municipal needs.
Absolutely. The analysis confirms that generating one complex AI training run can use as much water as filling a small swimming pool. This is a problem that AI created, and now AI-driven material science and engineering are stepping in to solve it.
And we saw a significant investment this week aimed directly at circumventing the need for those giant cooling towers.
Yes. Applied Digital, a major data center operator, led a $25 million investment into a company called Convergence, a microfluidic liquid cooling company. And this technology really represents the fusion of digital design and physical engineering.
So instead of cooling the whole room,
they use direct-to-chip cooling, utilizing microscopic channels etched right into the silicon itself. The coolant passes inches from the processing core, so we're moving the cooling system from the building level right down to the chip level.
And what's the impact of that?
This microscopic integration enables 3 times lower temperatures, which dramatically boosts performance. And critically, it drastically reduces the need for those enormous water-intensive evaporative cooling towers.
It integrates the cooling system directly into the digital core,
creating a symbiosis where the waste heat from an AI training run can potentially be captured at a high temperature and reused efficiently for district heating or even industrial processes. It turns the data center from a thermal drain into a possible thermal source.
That's fascinating. It's not just about energy generation, it's about waste management and efficiency, both driven by intelligence. But maybe the most high-leverage application of the green code is its ability to speed up the notoriously slow pace of regulatory approval.
Especially for nuclear. Absolutely. Everyone agrees that the primary cost and delay driver for nuclear construction is the decades-long regulatory review time. It's not the steel or the concrete, it's the paper trail.
And this is where AI comes in.
The research team highlighted the partnership between Atomic Canyon and the Idaho National Laboratory. Atomic Canyon is deploying AI, specifically Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG models, to scan, index, and query millions of pages of complex, interconnected nuclear documentation.
So it's more than just a faster search function.
Oh, much more. The RAG model acts like an impossibly fast team of legal experts. It can identify regulatory precedents, cross-reference safety standards across different versions of the code, and flag documentation gaps that would take human engineers years to find.
So instead of submitting an application and waiting years for back and forth,
the AI identifies and resolves 90% of the potential questions before the submission. The goal is to streamline the licensing process, potentially reducing regulatory timelines by 50%.
Having the time required for regulatory review essentially doubles the economic viability of a project overnight.
It does, by reducing the non-productive capital tied up during permitting. It's a pure, powerful application of digital intelligence. The green code solving a decades-old physical infrastructure problem, the hot core bottleneck.
It's the ultimate expression of the thesis: use AI to crush bureaucracy and accelerate deployment.
If AI can solve the regulatory overhead, the transition to dense, reliable power accelerates exponentially, making those early 2030s timelines for SMRs genuinely achievable.
And finally, we saw a policy move that powerfully underscores this whole density push coming from the Department of the Interior.
The DOI, yes. They issued an order prioritizing capacity density in federal land permitting decisions. This is not a subtle hint.
Yep.
It is a direct directive to favor compact, high-density projects, nuclear, geothermal oversprawling, land-intensive wind, and solar arrays. This frames nuclear and geothermal as the conservationist choice.
Using the argument of minimizing environmental footprint to limit these gargantuan infrastructural projects.
That's a profound political and regulatory realignment. It's leveraging the physics of density to push the hot core strategy forward, using the very argument environmental footprint that was once used against nuclear.
It shows policymakers are reading the data on land use conflicts. The goal is maximum kilowatt hours per acre permitted.
And that's where we get into the metrics.
Right. This pivot to the hot core is deeply rooted in a holistic view of sustainability that goes far beyond just counting carbon atoms. It's about minimizing physical footprint, maximizing resource efficiency, ensuring resilience.
And the land use divide is, as we touched on earlier, the starkest physical difference. It's the key driver. We confirmed that a single 1 GW nuclear plant occupies roughly 50 acres, and we need to pause and reflect on the scale of the alternatives.
It's hard to visualize.
It is. Now compare that 50-acre footprint to the low-density alternatives. Equivalent solar generation requires about 7,500 acres of land, and utility-scale wind farms can span anywhere from 70,000 to 150,000 acres.
Wait, 70,000 to 150,000 acres, that's the size of a small city. We're talking about replacing that sprawling footprint with a 50-acre site.
Exactly. The analysis consistently shows nuclear requires 27 to 34 times less land per unit of electricity compared to coal or ground-mounted solar PV. Those numbers illustrate exactly why policymakers are now favoring compact projects.
The physical imposition on the landscape, the loss of agricultural land, wildlife corridors.
It all becomes exponentially harder to overcome when projects require thousands of acres. The political costs, the opposition, the years lost in permitting for diffuse power sources are simply no longer viable given the urgency of the AI energy demand.
So the density premium of nuclear and advanced geothermal avoids all these land use conflicts.
And it allows projects to be strategically sited on existing industrial land, often at retired coal plant locations or deep underground, thereby avoiding population centers and complex environmental impact fights altogether.
So let's clarify the sustainability profile of the hot core from a carbon perspective, because that's the metric most people focus on.
Yeah.
Do the sources corroborate nuclear's ultra-low carbon intensity?
They absolutely do. Life cycle assessment data consistently shows that nuclear energy emits around 12 grams of CO2 equivalent per kilowatt hour.
And that's factoring in construction, mining, the whole process.
The entire life cycle. Some reports even cite figures as low as 3.7 grams per kilowatt hour. This carbon footprint is highly competitive. It's comparable to, or even better than, wind energy, and significantly lower than solar PV, which often registers 40-50 kilowatt-hour due to the energy-intensive manufacturing process.
So when we talk about rapid mass decarbonization, deploying the hot core technologies is among the most carbon-efficient actions we can take.
It's the highest density form of clean power we have right now. And we can't forget the waste issue, which is often the first concern raised.
Right. The fear of long-lived waste is often the biggest barrier to public acceptance.
And this is where the hot core innovation fundamentally changes the equation. Advanced fuel cycles, like the molten salt and thorium methods we discussed, dramatically improve the environmental footprint of the waste by enabling those high burnup rates.
They get more energy out of the fuel.
And that reduces the volume of long-lived radioactive waste by up to 90% compared to conventional reactors. And modern SMR designs are engineered for walkaway safety, using passive cooling and standardized containment to dramatically reduce the risk profile.
We're also seeing parallel efforts in hydrogen, which often serves as a flexible link between dense and diffuse energy sources. Our research noted the construction start on the 100 milliW Hamburg Green Hydrogen Hub.
That's another key example of the circular economy approach. It's located at the site of a decommissioned coal plant, reusing the industrial footprint of the carbon era to build the infrastructure of the hydrogen era.
And it's using offshore wind to power it.
Exactly. Using high-efficiency electrolyzers to produce green hydrogen for hard-to-abate sectors like shipping and heavy industry. This strategy ensures the transition is managed efficiently, leveraging existing grid connections and specialized labor.
And finally, we have to touch on energy storage. While the hot core provides reliable baseload, storage is still critical for balancing the grid.
Absolutely. No single technology solves the entire problem. The research team confirmed a global surge in battery energy storage systems, BEES, up 38% year over year.
We're seeing huge deployments.
Like RWE's Pembroke battery in the UK, 350 megawatts. These are essential for grid stability. And we also saw breakthrough reports on graphene supercapacitors achieving high power density. This storage capacity complements both high-density baseload power and low-density intermittent sources. It's an essential bridge technology that makes the entire grid more resilient.
So, to summarize the comprehensive synthesis of this analysis on Tomorrow Unveiled, the Green Code hot core theme is no longer a futuristic hypothesis.
No, it's the defining reality of today's energy transition.
The market, the policy framework, and the technology itself are all converging with astonishing speed on reliable, dense, and intelligently managed energy systems. The era of engineered reliability is rapidly and necessarily replacing the era of intermittency.
And we can confidently summarize the near-term outlook based on the corroborated timelines we synthesized. Advanced SMRs from TVA, Holtec, and TerraPower are coming online and expected to be fully operational in the early 2030s.
Just around the corner.
Fusion demonstrator projects like CFS Spark and China's BEST are racing to prove scientific viability, achieving net energy gain by 2027. That's just 3 years away. And advanced geothermal, through companies like Fervo, is expanding rapidly, providing secure, reliable power immediately to massive data center clusters globally.
The physical infrastructure of tomorrow is being architected today by digital intelligence.
Yeah.
The geopolitical AI arms race means that the nation or industrial consortium that first successfully uses its AI, the green code, to solve the fundamental physics bottlenecks of its energy systems, the hot core, will secure unparalleled energy independence and economic dominance for the rest of the century.
That's the high-stakes game we are watching unfold. The race to density is the race to economic power. It's truly compelling.
If you're listening on a podcast service like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating and review for Tomorrow Unveiled. It truly helps us reach new listeners.
It really does.
And we love hearing your thoughts. Whether you're on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, leave a comment and let us know what you think about the green code and hot core future. Thank you for joining us on Tomorrow Unveiled. We'll see you next time.